Hey, howdy. Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Sup, y'all?
And
Greetings. I'll do
there
it.
you go. I'm here with Travis Comble and Michael Persine.
First time.
I can't remember.
All good.
I remembered it wasn't
Play
person.
it back next time.
No worries.
Yeah, well, I'm old. I got mental problems. What are you gonna do? Oh, yeah, no, I got medical problems. I'm supposed to say, not mental problems.
Are we gonna get a Jay-Z's medical corner today?
I don't know. I had one not too long ago, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that'll be good." And then I forgot what it was I was gonna say, and so we lost it. I have to wait for another medical issue to crop up before I can talk about those things.
I'll be looking forward to your next medical problem, JC.
I'll keep my ear out.
I was thinking I could do Jay-Z's travel corner with travel advice.
There you go. And then where to stop for a tasty pint.
Yeah, no, people ask me that. I'm like, no. I'm like, just Google it.
Just Google it.
I'm not your travel agent, but I could give some solid travel advice. Who was I talking to? Somebody was like, man, you have all the details of how to travel. They were impressed. They were just like, I thought they knew to travel, and they were like, no. You've got I've got my techniques for, hotels and finding hotels and getting it, exactly the right hotel, the right price, right location, times, travel, modes of travel, varying your travel modes, based on time and money.
Sounds like we got a spin-off. Travel strong.
Travel strong.
Makes other travel guys sound like road trip guys.
That's right.
I don't know.
On the road with Jay-Z.
There you
go. Let me tell you about our fine sponsor, Blickman Engineering, and the fine gear. Like I always said, they are innovating your brew day through the brilliance of one John Blickman and a lot of the other guys they have there, and their passion for brewing and making great equipment. And they have a 3.5 barrel tall boy fermenter that is it's narrow enough to fit through a 36-inch door. So it's slimmer and a little taller. It'll fit through a 36-inch door. All the valves and accessories are mounted on the front. It makes it easy to use, because you can tuck it in a corner. You can tuck it in a row of fermenters. You don't have to worry about attaching stuff to the back. And that means you can have more fermenters in a smaller space in your brewery. A lot of small breweries, when people are starting out on their micro or nano breweries, they want to be able to get as many fermenters in the smallest space as possible, because one of the things about having a tap room or a brewery is the more space you have, the better, but you're paying rent on that. If you're not brewing a whole lot of beer, you really need to be minimizing your space and maximizing your sales. And so fermenters like this, definitely a great way to go about it. So I know a lot of people doing three barrel systems. And again, that 3.5 barrel tall boy could be a great thing for a lot of people. So check it out. They got a lot of stuff on their website, blickmanengineering.com. They make everything from the basic, anvil stuff to the high-end, commercial brewing stuff. So whatever your brewing needs, check them out and see what they got. And as always, send our good friend John Blickman an email at feedback@blickmanengineering.com. Tell him how much you appreciate that he pays for the show, so you don't have to. And that's all you gotta do. Check out their stuff and send them a nice email. All right. Today,
See the ratio of homeowners to pros that have that 3.5 barrel size now that he's put it out.
right? Yeah, there's probably a lot of homebrewers with 3.5 barrel fermenters in their garage.
Scaling it up now, Whitman selling that. It's nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's pretty neat because you could make a space that doesn't have a garage door, a brewery. It's like you can get a little apartment or something like in a big city and be brewing in it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and a lot of times, even if you find an industrial space, they won't have like a big roll up or something like that. Or even if they do, sometimes, you want to use the office space to put your fermenters in because it was air conditioned. And so you got to get through the door or something like that. Being able to fit through, it's like, scissor lifts, they're designed, to go through a doorway, so they're skinny and they collapse down to where, they pass through a standard door, which makes them so much more useful. And especially in existing spaces. Yeah. If you're not purpose building something from the ground up, pretty nice. So check them out. Today we are still catching up on questions. So if you're sending in new questions, we're catching them quick now. We're on top of that. And I mix in once we run out of those new questions, I'm mixing in all the older questions. So we will eventually get all the old questions done too. But don't worry if you sent in a question a long time ago. But if you got new questions, send them in. We're on top of it now. We're doing it. We're there.
We're here.
That's the enthusiasm I need. Let's see here. Jeremy writes, gentlemen and the lovely Bevo, I have a question regarding kegging. I've moved into the realm of kegging, but still want to bottle some of my beer. I am buying the 3-gallon kegs, but they are very expensive. So my question is, how can I go about adding 3 gallons of beer to a 5-gallon keg? Should I transfer it over and do everything normal? Do I have to adjust the PSI carb levels, or is this something I just shouldn't do like the time I got married?
Oof.
The reason for doing this is because I can get 3 reconditioned 5-gallon kegs for almost the price of 1 3-gallon keg. Thanks again for all the great info and shows. So I think what he's looking at is he's putting some in the bottling bucket, doing his bottling, and then he wants to put the rest in a keg. I would say, yes, you can do that. And if you wanted to do that, fine. Just pre-purge the keg with lots and lots and lots of CO2 to get the air out of there, and then you can transfer it. But the easier way would just to purge the 5-gallon keg, put all of it in the 5-gallon keg, carbonate it, get it all clear, dry hop, whatever you're doing, get the beer ready. And once it's ready and drinking perfectly, then just get yourself a Blickman beer gun and fill some bottles off the keg.
Absolutely.
However many bottles you want. And then you can adjust your carbonation up or down. You can get everything perfect. And when it's drinking perfect, that's when you bottle off. That's what I did. So
I agree.
That's a good way to go. Do you guys do anything different than that?
I guess for me, purging kegs, I've developed a process where I will fill up the keg with sanitizer all the way. It's overflowing. And then as I push that into another keg or into a bucket, I'll, especially early on, I try to catch it in the first gallon of sanitizer coming off. I pull the vent 10 times and I've had really good results, especially with oxygen sensitive beers like hazies and IPAs. So that way I feel like I save a little CO2 because I'm not cycling so much in and out, freezing.
That is a great way to go. And pushing it out into another keg, then that keg's ready to be
Right.
pushed out again the next time. So it, you
Yeah.
know, it'll sit there just fine, especially if you mix up your Star San with or your sanitizer with RO water or something like that. It doesn't have a lot of
Yep.
minerals in it. I don't think it's completely 100% devoid of DO, because when you mix up the sanitizer, there's going to be some oxygen in that liquid in that water. But still, you know, by pushing it out that way, I think that's really ideal, and easier, or like you're saying, using a far less CO2 than just flushing and purging, because you really don't know
Yeah.
things fully
Yeah.
purged.
One
You
other
can do
thing
a few,
oh yeah, go ahead, Travis.
you can do a few pressure pops, after you do put your beer in there. And again, if you're doing the 5 gallons in the keg, you pressure pop at a very small volume. You put 3 gallons in that keg, and there's a whole lot. Again, we follow Michael's tip there, which is very similar to what I do. You shouldn't have much air in there, but you're not really evacuating a lot if you try to pressure pop 2 gallons of space versus that small, tiny head space. When you're talking about ppm of oxygen, so forth.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, the last thing I do is I'll actually throw the keg on a scale, and I have the tare weight written on the side, and that's kind of the chemie in me, is I'll actually weigh it out, and then I know how many pints are in there. But I've had it where I only got 15 pints in a 5 gallon, and I haven't had any oxidation issues, but it's kind of nice to weigh it too. So if you were shooting for 3 gallons or whatever you're trying to do, maybe throw it on a scale. It's 8.34 pounds per gallon.
Mm-hmm.
So bing, bang, boom, you know how much you got.
Right. Well, yeah, I would think that if he, wants to bottle some, he can just fill the whole thing up and then just bottle off what he needs to bottle.
I'm with you on that one.
I think he'd be good.
Even if he did, I think he'd be disappointed. 6 years ago, even if he just put off, or whomever is brewing, puts all 5 gallons in the keg up front, and do your bottling off the keg, at least you started off with a full keg that's been purged. If you don't wait to carb, if you don't wait for it to turn bright, if you're not going to do any dry hopping in your keg, etc., it's still, why bottle out of a bucket, which I'm assuming, when you can bottle out of a pressure containing keg, driving it with CO2, your bottling would be better off that way anyway. Now, maybe you have a little bit of problems with it's been so long priming sugar. You don't need to put priming sugar in a keg, but all of these ways seem a whole lot better than forever ago when I used to bottle off of a bucket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
So,
the having the live yeast in there is good, but I'd prefer to properly, carbonate it, and then you can also make sure it's nice and clear, everything else. That's what I got. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, more of your questions right after this. All right, we're back. We're answering your questions. If you have questions for us, just submit them to brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com. You just send an email in there. You can say Q&A or show idea, something like that. Try and limit yourself to one question if you can, and send that in. And we're actually getting into them pretty quick if you send them in. If you're sending them in now, we just got to such a terrible backlog in the past, but we're getting the new ones in quick, and they're very much appreciated. Let's see here. Henrik, which he has sent in questions in the past. He's in Sweden, and he has asked some really interesting questions in the past. So this question, he's asked about agar plates with selective pressure, but not the selective pressure you're thinking. He says, "Hey, howdy, cretins. Thanks for a super show. As a tinkerer, always looking for improvements, and you always give me ideas on how to improve my brewing. And I've been plating exotic yeast from yeast packs in beers for quite some time. However, I always end up plating 3 to 4 agar plates, as I know there will be contaminants growing on some of the plates, making them useless. One idea I have been contemplating is to make agar plates with selective pressure that favor yeast. In biotech, this is common practice for making genetically modified bacteria, using antibiotics to make the plates favor only modified bacteria with resistance to the specific antibiotic. As a biotech engineer, I've poured thousands of plates under sterile conditions in a lab. However, doing the same thing at home in a makeshift sanitary environment, burner for updraft, low airflow environment, covered work area, etc., I still get infections on 25 to 50% of my plates, even before plating the yeast. Combined with the infection risk when plating, this means that I waste 80% of the plates I make. As a recipe for the selective plates, I was thinking this. DME wort at 6 Plato, lactic acid to pH of 4, agar for consistency, alcohol, vodka to 5% ABV added after the boil but before the agar hardens. Do you have experience using plates, growth media with selective pressure for storing plating of yeast? Do you think this would work? Play a test later this year, but if there is a knowledge experience showing it doesn't work, I will spend my time building a HEPA filter draft bench instead. Cheers, Henrik in Sweden. So I'm kind of shocked that he would get that high rate of infections on his plates. Because I poured plates at home without a hood a bunch, and I never had that high an infection rate. I mean, I'd get like 1 out of 100, 1 out of 50. I mean, pretty low percentage. So I don't know why he would get that amount. But I did work in an area that I would turn on burners on the gas stove. I would then spray afterwards. I would work quickly and under the lid, even when pouring the plates, but that's regardless. But as far as selective pressure goes, I don't know that there's a selective pressure that will keep out all the bacteria and wild yeasts and just favor brewing yeast.
Did he mention pH? I mean, is that going to help?
Well, he said lactic acid to a pH of 4. I know that if you take yeast down to like 2, it'll survive briefly and it'll kill off some bacteria. I mean, that's the process of yeast washing.
And I think our star sand runs about 2.4-ish at a proper mix, and that's kind of why we're using it. But all that being said, this guy does this for a living but can't replicate it at home. I'm not sure if I'm the one to give him advice.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I was thinking maybe throw some hops in there if you're trying to. I mean, hops have a natural antiseptic property. Maybe go overboard. Try to.
And then adding vodka to 5% ABV. 5% won't stop bacteria, or I mean, it's maybe some bacteria, but it's generally around 8% ABV when it starts to become inhibitive, and then it's somewhere close to 20% ABV when it truly will kill off things. But then I think, because I had a question for one of my guys in the for the distillery. I'm just like, at what point do distilled products no longer run the risk of contamination or infection? And his initial guess was like 30%. Most the guy did his PhD in bacteria, and then he checked into it. He's like, no, it's more like 18-20%. So I don't think 5% will do you any good. I don't think the dropping the pH a little bit will maybe help, but I don't think that is really going to do it either. If it were me, I would look at why I'm getting such a failure rate on my plates to start. And if it requires building a hood, build a hood. I mean, you can build, take a plastic sheeting you can buy for painting, put it up, seal it off, and just put, overlap the section front, and then just spray everything down. Do that a few times, just get a sanitary area and just keep doing that. And if you don't let stuff in, it'll remain clean.
Yeah. Oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
thinking, I was digging for that email. I couldn't find it. Sorry, Jamil. Did he mention if he does any controls? I mean, do we know it's environmental, or is it what he's dosing?
Oh, right.
What is-
No, that's an excellent point, Travis.
Oh
I
yeah.
knew there was a reason you were on this show. 100 points for that answer there, Travis. 100 points. Because I mean, what he's plating out may be contaminated.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there you go.
Yeah.
But then 20 to 50% of what he's plating out are bad. If he's getting it, if you take like a White Labs or a Y yeast, or Imperial, or one of the major yeast labs, and you take their package and you sanitize the outside, and you get the thing open sanitary, and you take a loop inside that, you shouldn't get any contamination whatsoever. So maybe he needs to do some of that for, kind of also just to make sure. And then, like you're saying, set some plates aside. Because that's what I did. I didn't immediately, inoculate them with yeast. What I would do would be, I'd make a bunch of plates. I'd make, 25 or 50 plates, and I would, it's for future use. I get all set up, everything's ready. And then it would be, a few weeks or months before I used the plate. And, if I saw anything growing on it, then I knew there was a problem. But, like I said, I could do 25 or 50 plates and not have any issues. So I'd work on why that's coming up. I think that's because I don't think, the broth that he is suggesting would actually do anything there. I don't think that would work. May have some impact, but it'll be minimal.
Yeah, I would just say from a process engineering standpoint, maybe, you got to assess your process and try to, I know the controls could identify that there's a contamination happening in the production of agar. Then you could say, well, okay, now I got to keep dissecting and try to isolate the different steps of your process, and then really try to figure out where the contamination is happening. I think that's kind of, because you can take swings at it all day and never really find the problem. So
it could be, his source of materials that he's using.
Right.
Could be that the plates aren't sterile. Could be that the agar is off some way. So, right. I think, essentially make the plates, let them sit for a while, and see if you're really getting it there, or if you're getting it through what you're plating. And that should answer your question there. Yeah, good job there. All right. So Travis, you had something from Scott?
Yeah, Scott posted in the chat on Facebook there. So I'm going to read it off.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed reduced hop utilization and reduced malt presence using a 120 volt system versus a 240 volt system? I brew on a 120 volt Anvil foundry and have found that I need to flip several levers to get beer that I envision increase the IBUs by 25% parentheses for an ESB or an IPA, add Vienna bark to a Pilsner, German block yeast for America. He's doing a few things that he's trying to increase his malt presence and his hop presence in the question. German block yeast for an American lager. And he thanks everyone. You're welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
He taught himself to brew during the pandemic and has learned a lot from us.
Yeah, there really shouldn't be a difference between a 120 and a 240 volt system as far as utilization goes. It'll save you a bunch of time, but you should be able to get more than adequate activity or movement in a 120 boil, unless it's a really like huge kettle and a tiny element. Should be fine.
I wonder what system he came from that he would isolate the voltage. Has he always had a anvil but a 240 before? Now he's at 120, or
I'm guessing that Scott, you're probably just using the 120 when you started, and it's only
okay.
just the one system.
Right.
The thing would be, if Scott's listening still, he can add to it, but I think the thing is, when you start brewing and you get these calculations and you get recipes, it depends on where your recipes are from. If you're just taking different recipes off the internet or out of magazines and things like that, they tend to vary from author to author and their experience and what they're doing. And it may be that you're just thinking that, the IBUs are low, or another possibility is that, perhaps you're not getting full attenuation. And if you're not getting full attenuation, it's going to seem like your bittering is much lower.
That's a great one, Jamil. He has posted, yes, 120 volts, almost 4 years. This is the mistake. Recipes based on brewing classic styles.
Well, there's your problem. No,
I had a question real quick. Is he at altitude?
That's a good
high
question.
up?
Scott will hear that in about 30 seconds when it runs through Facebook.
Yeah,
He gives a shout back.
right.
And anyone else who would like to listen live can also comment 30 seconds late.
And explain, Michael, why altitude's a problem for this.
Yeah, so at a higher altitude, your boiling temperature will actually drop, and I think it's every 1,000 feet, it's a couple degrees. And so if you're at 4,000 feet like me, I'm at 4,400 feet. I have a boiling point of 204 instead of 212, and so actually that affects my model utilization by about 20%. I have in my little scheme that I found, and so you got to account for that.
Is 209.
There you go. So I actually, when I get these recipes, I built a calculator in Microsoft Excel, and it calculates for boiling temperature, and so I can adjust. And that'd be my own. I think what you're saying too about attenuation is probably
right.
I would like the 90 percentile probably. So
right. And the thing about it is, when you're up past 180 or so, you get past 175, and you get up into the 180s, 190s, there's enough heat for isomerization, and it's really more about the stirring motion of the wort, where you see the stuff, the bubbles rise, and what it's doing is bringing liquid up with it and cascading back down through the pot, and it's this cycling of the liquid throughout the kettle, and that combined with the heat is what is isomerizing the alpha acids and giving you the bitterness.
And I can add for Scott, since he's listening in, I use the same unit on 240, but I dial my percent down. So my boil is exactly his boil in theory. I use 60% of 240, which is supposed to give you the same boil rate he's using. I don't think I've seen a drop. I mean, I've made so many changes through the years in my brew day, but I wouldn't say that I have to use 25% more of IBUs or anything like that now than they did before. It's possible in the last 4 years of his brewing, he's cleaned up some things here and there. And
Right.
so he's had a lot of modify his recipes and how products come out.
Are you getting the complete attenuation that are shown in the recipe, Scott? That would be another question. Because that's a possibility. The other thing that can do it is post ferment handling, where you get oxidation or you get staling of some kind, and staling will kind of up the sweetness in a beer, and oxidation can impact some of the hop compounds, so that could be a possibility too. Another possibility is you're getting the hops you're getting maybe are not all they're cracked up to be for some reason, or maybe if you're storing your hops warm, that can really impact the hops versus storing them cold in the freezer. I'm trying to think of all the other possibilities.
Is he getting the alpha acid from each bag of hops to 'cause
Right.
sometimes the calculators have a typical value, and
Right.
that's off from what they actually
That's why I
have.
don't, all the calculators, you just have to pick one and go with it and stick with it. And then, if you know that it's giving you, 25% less than you really want in bitterness, well then, up everything by 25%, or if it's too high, reduce it.
I can certainly attest that an IBU is not an IBU. I mean, I switched back to CTZ almost exclusively for my bittering of beers I want to be bitter, because I get the bitterness from CTZ. And I'm already calculating well over 100 IBUs on my double IPAs, and it still makes a difference if I use CTZ versus in a smash. If I use that hop, I often don't get the bitterness even close to what it says. I'm reading all the notes from Scott, and it sounds like he's really watched his process and has learned a lot and doing good things. Back to what you were saying, though, Jamil, I mean, if it's affordable to make it the modification that he needs to make, then I would just roll with it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, 25% is
A lot.
considerable.
I read an article in Zmergy. It was myths about brewing, whatever, and it had it had all the references and everything, and it was basically a good rule of thumb is every 10 degrees Celsius, you lose 50% isomerization from boiling at sea level. And so at 90 C, you're at 50%, at 80 C, you're at 25%, and so on. So I actually built that into my little
model. That's a considerable temperature difference for not a whole lot of change, right?
I mean, 10 degrees C, you say like 212,
20 degrees Fahrenheit. That's you're at 192.
I mean, my model kind of has a fit, so it doesn't do the whole. It doesn't do stepwise. It's kind of like at 204. Sure, you're getting 70% of your isomerization, or whatever. I think it's 75 or something like that.
But if it's 10%, did you say, for 10 degrees C?
I can actually let me see what I got.
If it's 10% for 10 degrees C,
it's 50%.
50%.
That sounds outrageous.
10 degrees C.
I'm not saying it's not true. It sounds outrageous. Also, Michael, if you tell us you interpolate, I think we're smart enough to understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. It may not be linear, but it may be linear.
That's a lot.
But that's substantial.
I never would have thought.
All right.
I mean, well, you get down to 160, somewhere around 160, supposedly you're no longer isomerizing.
But he's off like 1 degree C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be a 25% difference. Because he's boiling at 209.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. It's not like a lot.
Right. And I think for most people it's pretty minimal, because nobody's boiling at 192, or not very many people are boiling at 192. Let's put it that way.
I know how to fix this. We convinced John to host a competition for all Anvil Foundry owners to have you fly out and brew with them. Mm-hmm. And somehow we make sure Scott's name's in there a couple hundred times.
There you go. Well, yeah, it's super hard without tasting the beer to know what the answer is. So hopefully at some point we'll go visit Scott. He's in
He's Central
central
Indiana.
Indiana. He's actually pretty close to where Blickman is.
Yeah.
All right, just so I'm
Go
not
visit
crazy real
Blickman
quick.
and have him taste the beer and say, hey,
I think
what's going on?
I got the chart.
Oh, look at it.
I don't know
Oh,
if you
so
can
it doesn't
see.
look like it's linear.
Now it's almost
Well, I mean-
exponential or something, right?
Yeah, but it seems to follow a curve where you've got 80, 90, and 100 degree C, and it's roughly, and then even in the text, they talk about a good rule of thumb. We can approximate the drop due to temperature with the notion of isomerization halves every 10 degrees C. And this is out of Zemergy, May, June 2022. I will look for the reference. I'm not crazy.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, I think we beat that one to death.
Yeah.
Let's take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this. All right, we're back. We're doing live Q&A. If you're listening live in the chat, like Scott is. Yes, he said he was recently using hot bags, but recently abandoned. Yeah, hot bags that'll get you about 10% reduction using hot bags, percentage wise, in your IBUs. So, or at least that was the rule of thumb back in the day. I don't know if anybody's really truly measured it. Yeah, hot bags, you need to up your hops with that. Okay. Yeah, another one here. Couple of questions on the use of zinc. Apparently you talk about zinc on the show and then people ask how much. Got two questions. Thomas from Minnesota. He's saying, Jay-Z, I've heard you in the past mention the use of zinc as a much needed yeast nutrient, but only in very minute quantities. In doing some reading on zinc and brewing, I've learned that the use of copper in brewing, i.e. copper chillers, does lead to some leaching of zinc into the wort. I have a half barrel system. I use homemade copper counterflow chiller to cool the wort to whirlpool temps and stop the water flow and continue to run through the chiller to continue to the whirlpool, then with water back on knockout into the fermenter. So that said, in yours or Jay Palmer's opinion, am I getting enough zinc through leaching in copper, or would I benefit me to add some zinc monohydrate, say 100th to 600ths of a gram for a 16-gallon batch? And yes, my scale is more than good enough to weigh out cocaine. Thanks. Hope to hear your answer my question soon. Let's see. So yeah, copper also can, a number of metals can act in the same way as zinc does. But you don't get enough just from using a copper coil. Copper kettle would be even more. And one of the weird benefits of using copper, because I guess copper was easy to work back in the day, improved fermentation, through having that much copper there. But I don't think it would be enough. So the second question from John in president of the Malt Homebrew Club. Let's see. He just sent this not even a week ago. Oh no. He sent this like a year ago. Yeah, whatever. Let's see. Greetings from a loyal Cretan. I've been hearing Jamil advocate adding zinc, especially when repitching yeast. I've tried to research just how much to add to an 11-gallon batch, and the answers I can find are frustratingly incomplete and or imprecise. I'm a high school chemistry teacher, so when they say add 50 milligrams of zinc, I need to know whether they're talking about the mass of just the zinc or of a specific compound of zinc. Obviously, there is a world of difference between 50 milligrams of zinc heptahydrate versus 50 milligrams of zinc ions. My usual brews are lower gravity, English style ales, milds, ordinary bitter, Scottish light, etc. I know the dosing requirement is gravity dependent, but I'm quite prepared to do the calculations needed if I just knew precisely what they're talking about adding. Up to now, I've just been throwing a nutritional supplement tablet with 30 milligrams of zinc into the boil, assuming that something is better than nothing, and that the rest of the ingredients in the tablet are harmless. Well, the ingredients in the tablet are harmless, most likely, but something is not necessarily better than nothing if something is too much zinc, because the zinc will be toxic. Like most metals, a high enough concentration is going to in solution is going to be an issue for the zinc and kill the yeast and harm the yeast. But now I see that zinc will be bound in the tube in the kettle and should be added to the yeast slurry itself right at pitching. And not necessarily. I ordered a 1 pound bag of zinc sulfate monohydrate very inexpensively. If you're willing to get the cattle feed variety, it's pretty cheap. The human feed variety is a little more expensive. Well, I imagine they're the same thing. I don't know. The bag will probably last longer than I do. Brew Strong, John. Yeah, so the reason, people talk about adding it to the fermenter is because when you add zinc to the kettle, it binds with the tube and takes about 50% of it out of the, it binds up with the tube. And so it's not in the wort carried forward. For me, it's such a tiny amount of zinc. At Heretic, we always added it to the kettle. And the reason being the powders that the powdered zinc is probably got bacteria or wild yeast in it. It's everywhere. So, if you just take that powdered zinc and throw it in the fermenter, and that's not a good way to go. But I mean, you could add it to water, put it in a pressure cooker, get sterile, a sterile dose that way. And that would certainly work. And that might be more precise, but I've always gone with, a certain amount. I think I targeted something, I'll look at notes here. I can't remember what I always targeted for zinc.
I can tell you what you recommended to me.
Target a wort concentration of 0.2 to 0.6 milligrams per liter parts per million. So I always went with about 0.5 parts per million as my number that I always recommended of zinc added to the. So if you're using heptahydrate, that's going to be different than monohydrate. Heptahydrate often is easier to find than monohydrate, I think. But monohydrate has like 6 less water molecules, so you use less of it. So that being said, Travis here has created a calculator and also calculated what you need. He's a very simple way of knowing how much zinc to add to your volume of wort. Take it, Travis.
Certainly, it's almost too simple. So if you have the heptahydrate and you take 1 gram of zinc of the zinc heptahydrate and you put it in 1 liter, you need 8.32 milliliters per gallon of wort. So if you're adding that to your brew kettle, it's that much, not your knockout, 8.32. And if you have monohydrate, and do the same thing, 1 gram into 1 liter, you need 5.19 milliliters per gallon of wort.
So heptahydrate, you need about 8 mils per gallon. Monohydrate, 5 mils per gallon if you use 1 gram in 1 liter of water. Easy, simple. Great job, Travis.
Yeah, I had some direction.
Another 100 points for Travis. Michael, you're falling behind on this episode, man.
Hey, he destroyed me
Yeah.
last 2 episodes. It's all good.
Hey, you know, I'm in a funk. I don't know.
Well, there will be the
Points-wise.
bonus round
Double jeopardy.
where questions are worth twice as much. Let's see here. Previous show, dude named Texas, his actual name, Dr. Texas, I call him. And he does have a PhD. So Dr. Texas, he is owner and brewmaster of Ruigenbach Brewing Co. in Marshall, Texas. How far is Marshall, Texas from you, Travis?
All right, take the point. Somebody else look it up.
Here's your chance to steal, Michael.
Deal. Circle gets you square. I'm
Let's
missing
see.
all the game shows.
So he's the one who asked in the previous show, advice on, starting a brewery. What's the best advice for, let's see here. His question is, enjoyed the live show today. I've listened for years, but it's the first time I was able to tune in live. My question on the show was a very broad question about the best advice for a new startup brewery. I've been homebrewing for 11 years and like many dreamt of opening a brewery, but had no idea where to start. I have both undergraduate and graduate degrees in business and a PhD in higher education administration. So I figured I could research and figure it out. Let me tell you, business school does not prepare you to open a business from scratch. Absolutely, that's correct. And I say this as someone who has taught business in college. What an eye-opening experience. I don't want to scare anyone else off, and my desire, once we get our legs underneath us, is to help others fill in the gaps in information and overcome the hurdles I didn't even know I would face. Local craft beer is relatively new to the East Texas area where we are opening our business. So our business model includes creating a brewery experience with our location to ease winning over what is typically a very change-adverse population. This is strongly Bud Miller Coors territory. We're in the middle of a big building remodel and hope to begin brewing soon. Our goal is to open by May or June. You can learn more about the remodel on our Facebook page. I took a look at that, and it's actually pretty impressive building. Look, the place is looking pretty beautiful. Any advice is welcome and appreciated. I've been listening to Brew Strong for the last 5 or so years, and Jamil and John have been a huge influence. So I was thinking about this, like all the questions, half-ass any of my answers. And the thing is this, and this is true in probably any business, and I think it's forgotten, is that you need to take care of your customers. You need to focus on your customers. You need to like your customers. I was listening to some episodes of like a brewery failure podcast of breweries that closed, in part because I wanted to answer this question, right? I know what I would do, but what have other people done? And the thing I took away from that was there were a lot of instances of people saying, stupid ass customers and, these idiots these days, it became really pompous and that's been true for a long time. But if that's what you're thinking of, a lot of the customers, you're going to fail. You have to, at Heretic, I loved our customers. The people that came into our tap room, they were wonderful. Yeah, was there an idiot every now and then? Sure. That's just the nature of anything. But you need to listen to your customers and what they want. If they're saying they don't understand the new craft beer, well, give them something approachable for them, or, and explain to them. Take the time to have a conversation with them about what you're doing and why you're doing it. The more you can communicate your story to the customer, the better off you're going to do. Selling beer is before anything else, it is story. It is, catering to what the customer wants. It's explaining, it's social media, it's things like that. And if you can tell people why you're passionate, one of the things we did at Heretic was I wanted cask beer on. And so we would brew cask beer, but nobody that came in, or very few people that came in, had ever seen a beer engine or had cask beer. And they didn't know why it was warmer than beer that they're used to and less carbonated. But, we looked at that as an opportunity to have a conversation with them. I wrote up a document, and we put that, out where people could read it. And then people started enjoying it. And they're like, yeah, I understand why it is that way. I understand, the value add of getting actual, true cask beer. And pretty soon we were just blowing through, casks left and right. And it was because we involved the customer and we trusted the customer, and we treated them like adults, and instead of being angry with them about, their lack of knowledge about, craft beer, we engage them. And it sounds like that's what Texas is doing. He is, he wants to have a, brewery experience. And that's a chance, again, to, engage people in, understanding what it is you're doing. So I think that that's critical. And what else?
Jamil,
Yeah.
you opened a brewery in a town with a Budweiser brewery.
Yes.
You didn't let that stop you, right? For one, you make
Oh.
various great styles of beer, from the lightest to the darkest, to the biggest, the smallest, to the sours, to big Belgian non-sours, etc. I know what people in Houston like, and they like the whole ice house concept, but I don't know that anyone wants to spend that much money up front. I feel like Texas could. I look where Marshall's at. Marshall is just inside of Texas from Shreveport, another town many people don't know of. But Shreveport, I know because I'm from Louisiana. I'd be surprised if he has a problem. Again, if he likes the people that come in, and if he doesn't, find a new job.
Yeah, and I'd be shocked to say that the people there have not heard of craft beer, tried craft beer. I mean, maybe they don't drink it a lot because maybe there's no access to it, or there's limited access. So
make a good lager, put it on tap, and offer them something that they won't get from Bud Miller or Coors. You might have a bar that sells it, but you don't get to meet the brewer.
But the other thing is, make it an experience that you would want to go to, or the average person wants to go to in your community there, wherever you're setting up. Make it something where it's a nice environment, it's comfortable, the service is really good, the people are really friendly. That's what gets customers to keep coming back. If you can provide food, because that really helps. Food and great customer service, and I'm telling you, people just keep coming back because of that. And then if you add quality beer in underneath all that, that'll keep them coming in. But I've seen people go to places with horrible beer just because the customer service was great, and it was just such a wonderful place to hang out. I've sat and drank at places where the beer's not that good, but it was just a lovely experience. So there you go.
And I guess I don't have too much experience here, but I guess I can just, off the top of my head, actually being born in Texas and visiting Texas several times, it seems like there's one thing they're more proud of than being American is being Texan. And that's one thing none of these big brands have, I would say. And maybe look at that angle. And I would say too, like, you know, hot weather beers that are really easy to drink in the summer. I mean, kind of your climate can dictate. And then kind of like you were saying, for them, I would say that the person who isn't a craft brew geek like us, a lot of these beers, especially like you were saying, cask, they're Pandora's box. They have no idea what they're going to taste like. They have no, and I think for me, even as somebody walks in, I want to get a beer that I can reasonably expect the flavor profile. And that's where you got to, I would think, the better edge, like, you know, kind of putting it out there, like, give the flavors, give the things, tell them that they get free tastings, put it on the wall, like, free tasting. If you want to try this, it's totally no pressure, you know, kind of, you don't have to buy one to taste it, kind of thing.
Make it so your customers know that you care about them and their experience,
right,
and that you're not there to just take their money. You're there to, you know, share an experience with them. Makes a big difference. The other thing I'd throw in there is I didn't name my brewery Zanishev Brewing Company. You know why? Because pretty much nobody could pronounce that. So, I mean, I might change the name of your brewery. I call it Dr. Texas. I don't know. That might be
yeah,
fun.
and then like have like a Dr. Mario thing going on, but it's Dr. Texas.
All right, one last break, and we'll be back with one more question right after this. All right, we're back. Billy had a question about Clarity Firm. He says, I'm about to start my first real repitch Olympics, going to brew with Y yeast, London 3 yeast, and repitch 3 times due to inspiration from you guys at Brew Strong. My third and final targeted brew will be an English barley wine. I've got a 2-year-old version I love, but it's almost gone. I'm adding Clarity Firm to the first pitch, which is split 10 gallon batch porter 5.5, so my girlfriend and mom can enjoy. Is there any reasons not to pitch Clarity Firm to my 3rd generation brew of the barley wine that I will be drinking for 4 to 7 years? Yeah, no reason not to. You absolutely can do that. The especially in a barley wine, if the alcohol level gets high enough, I'm not sure what alcohol level it takes to denature Clarity Firm, but I imagine if you're, you know, 8, 9, 10%, it'll probably denature the enzyme. So I really wouldn't worry about it. I think it'd be fine. You guys have anything different?
In my readings about Clarity Firm or Brewer's Clarex, it's an enzyme that if it denatured, or if it didn't denature, I mean, I guess if you're shooting for a chill haze or gluten, you'd be concerned about. But and then I think from White Labs, yeah, these enzymes have a half-life and they don't exist much past their purpose, you know.
Right. And if you were to consume it, I don't think personally, I wouldn't be worried about it, because I know my stomach has plenty of acid in it. And by the time the beer reaches your stomach, it will denature any enzymes that are in there as well. And I don't think it would harm anything for storage. I don't think it would cause any problems whatsoever. So I'd go for it.
Yeah, the beers I brewed with Clarity Firm have all come out awesome. Actually, my stomach always feels better. I think that's the gluten thing. And then also the Clarity's been really nice, and to not have to worry about oxidizing a beer, trying to find it. I mean, it's a nice.
Is that why you use it, Mike, or
so the first one I did, I had a friend who was gluten sensitive, so I tried it. But this actually in the fermenter right now, I have a cold IPA that I'm using Clarity Firm, so I'm trying to avoid finding it. I have Biofine Clear, but I just want to try to see if I can get this to clear up without it. But yeah, and then so I got really into the whole science of it, and sounds like it's pretty well engineered. And I always think the guys at White Lab know what they're doing. Like, they wouldn't put it out there, say something that it wouldn't do or do.
Yeah.
right? And it's bigger than just White Labs.
Yeah, it's the White Labs is a kind of a repackaging of Brewer's Clear-X
Yeah.
into homebrew size
Yep.
packaging. All right, there you go. Another fine show. Travis was the winner of this show. You get some furniture from Broyhill. It's going to be shipped direct to you. And then it's going to come flat pack. You're going to have to assemble it though. So there you go. If you're listening live, stay tuned. We're going to do another show right here in a little bit. I don't know if these guys need to pee, but that would be the delay in starting. And other than that, make sure to check out our fine sponsor, Blickman Engineering. Check them out and send an email to John Blickman. You can send it at feedback@blickmanengineering.com. Tell him how much you appreciate he pays for the show. And you don't have to. And check out, while you're there, check out all their fine stuff. Good folks. All right. Until then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong.
Strong.